Welcome to the Made to Parade podcast, sponsored by the British Drum Company, manufacturers of the Phantom, Regimental Series and Axial Parade drums that look amazing, sound amazing and feel amazing.
So folks, welcome along to the Made to Parade podcast. You're joining us on the very first episode of season number 5. Absolutely delighted to be back again, and absolutely delighted to be joined by Jason Kernohan from Pride of the Maine. Jason, absolutely fantastic to have you on, mate. Thanks for taking the time out. One of the bands that has been talked a lot about by lots of different members of other bands, so obviously about time we had you guys on. So we'll just kick off with how we normally do this. Jason, how on earth did you end up in a band? What sparked your interest?
Well, my cousin was always in Pride of the Maine, Mitch, and my brother was in the band, and it was just a thing that was going to happen. You're joining the band and that's it. I always loved seeing the band out, and that was more or less what started it off.
Alright, so the brothers were in already then, and then you just kind of... Yeah. So did you see them like getting ready and stuff, you know, and you're like kind of going... Were you going, I want some of that, or were they kind of coercing you?
Well, I always knew I was going to end up there.
Right.
But when I seen it all going on and what was all the preparation and stuff, I just thought, aye, that's for me. I want to be part of that.
No worries. So you had no convincing your parents or anything because there was other people in, it was all good?
They were happy enough because my brother was there. So.
Alright, and plus they get rid of you for a night then as well. Happy days. So what do you remember then about those early days, you know, sort of going down for the first time? Because I know for me, that's something that always stands out for me, is the idea of walking into this place with all these people that I don't know for the first time. What was the experience like when you went down to where they practiced?
Well, it was the Protestant Hall in Ballymena at that time on a Monday night, and we were kind of kept away from we were in the back room, the learners room, but you could hear the band practicing away in the big hall, and you were, chills were up your back, and then you had to go in and do your bit. And at that time it was Big Rob Hamilton was doing the teaching, so that was a good teacher to start with.
Brilliant. So it was the flute you started off with then? Yeah. How did you find that whole process of trying to learn?
Well, the usual one was just you start off with the national anthem, and that got you going. You learnt your scale, and then you progressed to the sash and the lily and all the easy wee blood and thunder ones, and then you progressed up to the harder stuff.
And how long did it take you to get a note out of the first thing before you even hit the scale and all that there? What was it like trying to get your embouchure sorted?
I'd always had a go on my brother Greg's flute, so I could fill the flute before I went down. So.
All right, okay.
I was well prepared.
Brilliant. So you weren't like me making a thing sound like a cat had died, you know.
I think actually Greg made me learn how to fill the flute before I got down. So
he was making sure you didn't bar some, was that the correct? Brilliant. And then how long did it take you in terms of learning till you were actually in a position where you were going to be walking with the band?
It was probably a full year.
Right.
We tried to learn the tune a week. The wee blood and thunder ones were a lot easier, but whenever we moved on to the melody ones, they maybe took a couple of weeks to get the hang of. But no, a full year. That was from joining to I was out again, so I would definitely say I would take a full year to learn our tunes.
Right, no worries. And what was your first parade then?
My first parade was, I think at the time, was Easter Tuesday, the June Orange in Bangor.
Okay.
That was about the first time out walking with the band, so the keeping in step and playing the flute and playing the tunes at the same time was about trying to get that into my head, and the legs weren't working with the brain. And
I know, that's the thing, we all talk about that, like, it seems to come up like on every episode when people talk about their first parade. They talk a wee bit about, you know, how getting caught out of step, being out of lane or whatever else, and it's not something you do, and because you're usually sitting down, it's not like you're marching about or anything like that, though, you know.
Well, it was either flute and not keeping step, or keeping step and not flute. After a few cracks with the deacon stick, it was So,
brilliant. So discipline on the road there, get yourself sorted out. Oh, very good. So excellent. What do you remember the first period apart from that? You know, apart from the being called out. Now, what was the, in terms of the experience? What can you recall?
Just getting the uniform on and getting the boots polished up and the excitement of getting away for the day. And it was Crumlin Junior Orange we took, so we had the parade Crumlin in the morning, and that was a good wee break and get you started and get you going. So, just the, you know, the crack in the bus and the way down, the excitement, getting out and first time, and just that's, you know, you've learned for a year, and this was it. You were out and you had the uniform on you, and that was
good to go.
Good to go.
And what age were you?
14 when I joined, so I was probably 15.
15, right enough. Okay, dead on. And then, what are some of your best memories then of that sort of early stages in the band? Because, you know, some people would look in and go, 14, 15-year-old nowadays has got 1,000,001 other distractions. What kept you at it, and what are some of the things that you remember that were really good about that time?
Well, it was always good to get out and away. You know, places you'd never been before. You know, walking the towns and various wee villages and stuff around the country. It was good to get out and meet new people. And the guys we went to school with, they were all in bands, different bands. Like my class at school, I think we had about 5 different bands.
Right.
And actually, my class we had 3 bandmasters eventually come out
right,
of my
okay.
class at school. So
right.
that was definitely a hot topic at school as well. So we were going out and doing your stuff at the weekend, then coming back into school and talking to the boys about it in school and where you were at and what you done and stuff. It was always good to get out.
Yeah.
You know?
All right, so the different experiences that you got through being a member of the band was part and parcel of keeping you involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And is there any particular people during that time in the band that stand out for you? Maybe like as an inspiration, or people that maybe that someone you maybe aspired to be like, you know, and maybe talk a bit about that.
Well, that time there was like a changeover in bandmasters. It was Stephen Scullion was the bandmaster at that time, and he was an amazing flitter, and he was always playing wee bits and parts and stuff, and you're always trying to do what he was doing, and you know, and there was always big personalities in the band, the likes of Brody and Mitch. Kept the party going as such, you know.
Okay.
It was always good to get out and amongst them, you know.
And the Pride of the Maine's always been noted for having a particular style. And was that developing as you were joining the band, or was it already well established by the time you got there?
No, when I joined the band, we were well into the melody at that time. Obviously we kept hold of the Blood and Thunder tunes, but it was more melody, you know, Mirror Street, Queen of Battle, all that sort of stuff. But then when Stephen came in, he put out more or less what we play now. You know, jigs and reels. Most of our music came from the likes of the Royal Irish Rangers LPs and stuff, pipe band music and stuff like that there. So that's where that kind of style comes from.
Because it started to be quite influential once you made that shift around. Was there something specific with the bandmaster at that time that made him go, this is where I think we should be going? Are you aware of what that was or anything?
Well, he came from a melody background originally, but I suppose it was he brought the tunes in, so it was his influence that put us out there. Something different, a wee bit sort of over to the Scottish side of things as well. It's just something different, and it worked well for us.
Yeah. How did it go down initially? Because I know sometimes when you do a style change, there can be a wee bit of kicking against the goads, you know, you can rub some people up the wrong way. Was it a smooth transition?
I think it was, There's just the guys were excited to learn something new and something that nobody else was playing. You always have the guys that like their melody. I love the melody side of it, but nowadays, you know, the younger boys, they like a good rowdy tune, you know. But you just have to go with what the guys want, you know.
Well, you sort of a band that I would kind of say as being like a rowdy band. Like, I mean,
back in the day, maybe, but not so much now.
And then, how long did it take between that and you being right? The melody stuff was gone. I suspect at some point you kind of went, right, that's not us anymore. These tunes are now off the list or whatever.
Well, more or less as we started bringing the other tunes in, you know, we were playing far too many, so we had to drop a few. I think we hung on to Royal Union and Queen of Battle for a long time because they were just a tune that we liked playing.
Decent tunes.
So those were probably the last to go, but then we just moved forward with the way we were going.
Okay.
Most of the tunes come from, you know, military bands and stuff, so that's kind of the direction we went in, what we more or less stick to now.
And were you aware that people started to take notice of what you were doing?
Oh yeah, certainly. There was many a time we seen the odd tape recorder following us up there.
Right, okay.
Especially when we went to Scotland. You had Govan Proddy Boys guys coming behind us, very interested in what we were playing, you know. So.
I know, we had a guy on from Govan Protestant Boys and obviously referenced Pride of Maine as being a bit of an influence on what they done, because they're kind of known for that type of style as well. Maybe some similarities uniform wise as well, I think, is there? So when did you become aware that one, this is something we're going to stick with, and two, that it was yielding results?
Well, it was more the decision to go with kind of that military kind of music. Obviously it was changed to, you know, it was adapted to suit the band, but generally we like to bring a tune in that maybe meant something, or, you know, maybe a regimental march at some of the local regiments or something. But you know, we play the UDR march now, so it's that type of thing, you know. We like to bring tunes in that have a bit of history behind them, or a bit of connection, especially Ballymena. You know, they were a big sort of garrison town at the time with St Patrick's Barracks, so there was always an influence there. I grew up in Ballykeel, and a Sunday morning you just heard the band out parading around the parade ground, so you could run like mad or jump on your bike down to the fence, and you were listening to that. So it was always sort of influenced by that as well, you know.
Yeah. And what was the band scene like in Ballymena at that time?
There was, well, you had bands in the likes of Ballykeel and us, and you had a Hawkhall, Bally were going at the time. There was quite a few bands about the band scene in Ballymena, and there was always a lot of rivalry between the bands, but not so much now. There's a lot more continuity between the bands now.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this before, you know, there being rivalry. I don't think rivalry sometimes is a bad thing, you know, because it can push you and keep you on your toes to say, well, listen, those guys are progressing really well. We need to up our game, and I suppose it kept people fresh and stuff like that there. I don't know, so I don't want you to name, maybe, well, I do want you to name, who would have been, who's the rivals then? Or would have been the rivals? I
would say probably Ballykeel would probably be. There's always a rivalry between the two bands, you know, but it's all good that, you know, there's no badness in it or anything, but we're always like to bit of banter and keep everybody on their toes. You know?
We had two decent bands anyway, you know, so two very, very different bands, obviously. Maybe there's some areas where there's maybe some similarities. I think where Ballykeel now went with, they've introduced that piccolo thing and stuff going on with them, kind of gives them a wee bit of maybe a different spin to what you guys are doing and stuff. So in terms of growing up, you're in the band, you're 14, 15-year-old, having all these different experiences, visiting different places. You're bound to have had a favourite parade that you ended up like doing every year.
Probably, well, apart from doing the Belfast 12th in those days, probably our favourite parade was Banbridge.
Right.
Downshire, we always had a good relationship with them, and we used to do it in fancy dress.
Right, okay.
So that was always classed as our last parade of the season, not so much now because they run on a wee bit now, but Downshire's parade was definitely one of the...
So, fancy dress, you have to talk a wee bit about that now. Like, if this was your best parade of the year, what was the crack with the fancy dress?
There was priests and nuns and
right, okay.
monkeys and all sorts of stuff, you know.
So how did you decide that? Was it just turn up whenever you want, or did you just have like a theme?
No, just everybody done their own thing.
What was the motivation between going to Downshire's parade and fancy dress? What started that all off?
Our last parade, it was a bit of a...
It was a blowout? Right, okay.
Have a bit of a laugh and enjoy it, you know.
Alright, and where's the fancy dress element these days? It's long gone, is it?
It's long gone.
So, obviously, in terms of that's a local bonds or another bonds parade, any of the orders parades that you always were keen to do, or?
Black Saturday was always a favourite of mine. That was a more sort of calmer day and a bit more discipline about it. You know, I always enjoyed Black Saturday. So.
Yeah, no, Black Saturday's always I've always found it a good parade, and I know we were talking earlier. For me, Black Saturday always was kind of the end of the parading season. Was like, well, obviously the parading season, it doesn't matter. It seems to last. It seems to last every month. Exactly, that's it. So, so how aware are you of how the band has changed over the years?
Well, certainly the discipline has improved. You're more aware of where you're at and your surroundings and who's watching you, and not that there was any, anything that you didn't need to be doing, but it was you're just more aware with the phones and cameras and stuff. People can make things look a lot worse than they were,
Yeah.
So that there's certainly an awareness now of where you are and what you're doing,
And I suppose that carries through in terms of just reputation. I mean, if you've got a reputation as being a decent playing band, you don't want that to be ruined in any way by, videos getting out of certain things happening and so on. And that's so readily available. So I think it's been great. The development of technology has been great because obviously bands are seen a lot more now and have been over the last lot of years. But also there's the potential for the negative side of that.
That's the thing about the technology now. Like for years we paraded and you never seen a band parade because you were always in it, and you didn't really a lot of the times get a chance to see other bands.
Yeah.
But now you can go home and you can sit on a Saturday night or a Sunday morning there and watch all what was on.
Get a live feed and all that. No, exactly, that's it. You kind of. I always look forward to certain periods of the year because you knew you were going to encounter a particular band. I think such and such a band will be at that parade, brilliant. Whereas there's kind of the mistakes kind of been taken out of that, especially with the Scottish bands. The Scottish bands are here more than some of the local bands, you know what I mean? So, any other bands that you really admired whenever you obviously started walking with the band? Were any other bands at the time you were thinking, God, those guys are good?
Well, there was always the likes of the Scottish bands, the likes of Black Skull, they were just, they were the top notch. And you had a big record sitting in the bedroom there on the record player, listening away to hear all their tunes, and you were trying to learn their tunes in the background,
Yeah.
And I preferred the melody bands personally, but there was definitely Black Skull would have been a big favourite of mine growing up.
Okay, yeah, and that's obviously that first LP stroke tape that they did is always talked about. A lot of people will talk about that being a very influential kind of thing on the scene. Lots of bands started to try and, I suppose, copy or be inspired by them and take, some of the tunes that they were playing and then try and do them. But you guys have done that. You guys have inspired people, haven't you? So.
Well, we brought a tape out, the Blue Devils, years ago. That was recorded. Actually, the bass drum, the treble setting up the bass drum in the studio, so the bass drum was on a synthesizer.
Right.
So
Okay.
I recorded the bass drum and Brody was just sitting tapping away
Brilliant.
on the keyboard, which was, well, just at the time that was the way it was done.
It's done, right? Okay. So is that a scoop? Just doing that? Too many people know this?
Oh
or is that
no, that's no secret.
Is it all right? No worries. Dead on. Just in case, you know. So like what? So the Blue Devils tape is mentioned a lot. You play on this, did you?
No, I wasn't.
You didn't play on it. Okay.
I was in the band at the time, but there was only like maybe at the top maybe 8 or 10 flitters went.
Right. Okay. So it wasn't a full band scenario. It was like, here we need a certain amount of people to go down and record this here. And what did you think whenever you got a hold of it yourself?
Oh, it was great. They had everybody's name on it, and you just thought you were the bee's knees.
Brilliant. And what was it like trying to sell that? Or did you get levied a few copies?
We sold quite a few now, but the problem was obviously the piracy at the time. There was a few guys tried to copy it and sell it on, but we had done it in a white tape, so that was harder to sort of disguise as something else, you know.
It's one of them things though, and that was the thing back then. Obviously the high speed dubbing and all this here, people could just, you know, roll these things out, and the next thing you know they're up in Nuts Corner, and you know, somebody is making a few pound off them and stuff like that there. But the tapes were amazing, I think, for, you know, one as a fundraiser for bands, but also as a way of people being able to hear what other people were doing, you know, getting an idea of what styles and things that people were doing. Because the Blue Devils tape gets mentioned a lot as well. You know, a lot of people will say, if you ask them to rank sort of like their top 3 tapes from back in the day, Blue Devils gets a strong mention, you know.
It was, at the time, it was a kind of a changeover from where we were to where we are now. We were kind of in the middle of that changeover at the time, so there's a lot of tunes I would like to have seen on it that aren't on it.
Yeah.
We did talk about doing a CD again, but again nowadays CDs are kind of nearly moving out.
I know. Even when you think about bands that have done the what do you call it, the pen drives as well, it doesn't really have the same kind of feel, does it? You know what I mean? I know that a number of bands, I know we're talking about recording again, and they don't know what maybe format to go, because will they sell? Will they not? And they go down the idea of the streaming side of things. There's not a lot of money to be made in terms of the streaming side of things, unless you're, you know, doing millions.
It's a hard thing to get right. You put the money into it and do CDs. You need to get out there and sell as many as you can in the first month, because once they're out there, they just get copied and that's it.
I know, and that's it. I know, it's crazy. So it is. So, 14 years old, you join a band. I'm not even going to ask you what age you are now, right? So you've been in the band for quite some time, yeah? What on earth keeps you going back week after week now?
It's just kind of, well, I was in the band, and then I left for a while,
right.
And then I came back. But it's just in you. It's just, you know, there's just something in you that you're always attached to it, you know. So when I went back, I said, look, I'll come back and we'll do the flitting at the practices, but I don't want a uniform or anything. And then they got shirts and trousers, and I said, well, you know, if you sure, get me a shirt, you know, and sure, if I need to go out some night, I'll go out some night. That was it.
So you had a Godfather moment, did you? You know, just when I thought it was out, they threw me back in, did they? Very good. All right, and you probably wouldn't be without it now, I'm sure. You know,
definitely.
Definitely. Brilliant. So how's the band doing at the minute? Obviously, you know, COVID, strange times and stuff.
Yeah, there wasn't much happened through COVID. Now we did make a conscious decision to do less. We felt we were stretching the band too much. You know, you've 26 flitters or something in the books, and you're 3 or 4 periods a week. You're only getting 12 out every week, so we thought, you know, you're going to upset the spine of the band, and if they go, you're beat. So we decided, right, we'll try for 1 a week. And it has worked well for us. We're out with bigger numbers, and the guys are getting their odd weekend off, and a Saturday night off or a Friday night off, which
keeps the wives happy, or the girlfriends happy at least, anyway. Yeah. Okay, so once a week, bigger band, and you find that that's working all right. Then everybody's happy.
Certainly, when you're out and about with a bigger band, it kind of draws more interest to you as well. And we've had a few new members,
All right, very
as
good.
well, so it's all good.
Happy days. Nice to know bands are still growing, given the fact that things were quite quiet for a long period of time. One of the things that I like to ask people about in regards to bands, because obviously the purpose behind the podcast is about promoting positive stories from within the band scene. What kind of things is your band involved in terms of your community?
Well, you're providing an outlet for young ones to come in and get them off the streets, mainly at the weekend. And if they're out with us at the weekend, they're not running around the States causing devilment or whatever. So it's always a good outlet to be involved in. You're taught to respect your community and those in it. So it's a good place to be.
So it's a good diversionary thing in terms of you got reasonable amounts of young people in the band now.
Yeah, lately we have. Although they tend to grow up pretty quick, So
there's a lot of distractions, like we were saying earlier. There's a lot of things competing for their time now. So, but do you find that once you get in, or they get in,
once you get
that they're
in,
kind of they're locked in with that?
Get the bug.
Yeah, and it comes down to that relationship thing, doesn't it? It's where they're finding, young people are just trying to find their way in the world. They're trying to work out who they are, and it's amazing just how much bands contribute towards that. Not just about the learning an instrument, like you're saying, it's about learning how to communicate with people, discipline, being able to show up for things, and just have some level of commitment and loyalty to something, and I think those are all valuable lessons. And I suppose the thing that you talked about at the very beginning was about these new experiences, getting to go to other places, and meet new people, do new things and stuff like that. And that's such a massive part of growing up, and it enriches young people's life, enriches all of our lives, in terms of those kind of things. But like we always say, bands don't get the credit for that type of input into the young people's lives, do they?
Definitely not. I would say, like, I'm glad I was always in the band, because the experiences I've had, where else would you get them? You're all right, and they're not always good experience at times, but that's all part of life. We have to
roll with it, don't you? So talk to me about some of those standout moments for you then. What are the things that whenever you think back about your time in the band stand out for you, and why?
Well, in terms of achievements, when I was voted in as bandmaster, that was a big thing for me at that time.
Why was that? Why was that a big thing for you?
Well, you're always striving to be better, and
it's who's come before you.
Okay. You're going to be good enough, or you're going to be. But
and how have you handled that then? Because obviously, when we talk about Pride of Maine, we talk about Estelle, we talk about people that you've mentioned already who have taken the band in a particular direction. How much pressure did you feel when you took over?
Well, I was lucky enough that more or less things were set in place when I became bandmaster, so it was only a matter of really carrying that on, and bringing in a few new tunes now and again. They just spice things up a bit, move them about and drop tunes and bring tunes in. But it's always you're always trying to be as best you can be.
Yeah. How do you make that decision then from a bandmaster to go, well, listen, this tune's got to go, and I want to bring something else in? What goes through your mind whenever you're trying to do that?
Well, some tunes you get tired after a while, and you're hearing better things. You try new things. Quite a lot of the times, it's guys are coming to me at video or to listen to this. We should play that, and I go, oh, well, okay, we'll give it a go. So that's not just on me as well. It's if the young guys want to play something different, we'll definitely look at it.
Aye, but you're bound to have had somebody come to you with an idea, and you've went, Absolutely not.
Quite a few.
What's your filter? What makes you go no?
No.
I don't like it. It's not happening.
You just
Okay.
know it. Some tunes you can adapt to our style. If it takes us away too much from our style, I would say no, that's not really for
Okay.
us.
So we've mentioned it a couple of times. If we talk about Pride of Maine style, you've just mentioned it there now, our style. What is Pride of Maine style?
That's been talked about a lot. Generally, the tunes that we bring in are like, they all come from military backgrounds. Some of the tunes you might not think it, but they were taken. All our music comes from various military bands, pipe bands, which are obviously going to be playing a lot of, jigs and reels and stuff. But that kind of style is really what we've always been known for.
So
it's easy to pick that up when you're
Yeah.
listening through the CDs and stuff. You say, oh, we could play that.
But you also give them a bit of a switch up, don't you? I mean, so how do you actually go through that process? So here's the tune, but in order for that to be Pride of the Maine, it has to go through some kind of transformation. Yeah. So how does that work? Do you kind of go and say, well, listen, I'll have a work at that, or is it, again, you talked a bit about that being maybe collaborative? The other people kind of have a go and then use.
Yeah, there's a few ones we brought in. And you'd maybe sit down, me and Wally Kernohan, he'd give me a hand with a few of them. We sat down and there's just wee flicks and up and down scales that we would play, and it's just, how to change it.
Just kind of naturally happens, does it? You can almost hear it and put it into practice. Is there a tune you would say you're known for?
Well, we've started playing Blue Devils again, which is a melody tune that was on our CD. I think it's a great tune. When we introduced it again a few years ago, we were getting great feedback on the videos and stuff on YouTube from it, So my favourite tune at the minute would be probably UDR March.
Right, okay.
Which we brought in a couple of years ago. We beefed it up a bit.
Any particular reason why that's a favourite?
Just it's when you think of the UDR and what they've done for the country, it's just it's nice to be able to play things like that. That there's that connection to it.
Yeah, you've mentioned that a few times. This connection to either history, culture, etc., and that's become a more of a thing for bands now, isn't it? Is they trying to make some kind of connection with either historical things or things that are relevant in terms of the history that we've come through. And you guys are obviously in the middle of that as well then, so it plays a key part.
Well, we always try to play something different, and that's when you get into that you kind of, it's hard to pick out a tune that nobody else plays because it's more out there, and everybody it's available to everybody. But years ago when we brought those other tunes out, there wasn't that many CDs or tapes about. It was off old records and stuff. So that's where a lot of the stuff came.
So you find you're still trying to do that, get things that people aren't playing.
Yeah.
And that was always something I remember growing up, was like, it was almost like, keep this a secret, do not let anybody know that we have this tune or whatever else, you know what I mean? And that's, as you say, it's difficult now to kind of keep a lid on things, so I know I was up the other week there with the Rothcool Protestant boys, and I happened to hear a couple of their new tunes, and I was like I was sitting listening away, and I was like kind of going, you know what, when I was 15, 16, this would be unheard of. A band letting you sit in on their practice and hear some of their new tunes, it's like kind of going, whoa, never going to happen.
Well, I wouldn't say it's just as much top secret now as it used to be, but definitely.
But it's nice to sneak one in there that nobody's knowing about and kind of going, how would you hear this? And then when you just drop it, it's like, oh, aye.
The young guys with the Snapchats out at band practice, it's hard to keep it.
I suppose. Or that TikTok malarkey, the people are. Yeah, I have no time for that. There, I can't work it at all. So, definitely showing me age there. What about charitable work? Is the band involved in anything in regards to charity-based stuff?
Recently the guys were out with Gertrude Starr there.
Right. Okay.
They done a charity.
Oh, the walk thing. Yep. All right.
For young Jack Oliver. That was 31 miles or something. I took the bike up to Antrim and met them at Dunsally and walked back down with them, and that was hard enough going for me doing that.
Right.
There was a few blisters now at the end of it. But it's good to be able to do that, and just, it cost us nothing, just a bit of effort. And
there was a couple of guys from Ballykeel in there as well, wasn't there as well? So Ballykeel yourselves and the Gertrude were doing this, weren't they? Yeah. But that's great to see, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have to say that. Again, that's another thing that I don't think bands get enough credit for, is the amount of work that they do for charity and stuff. And I suppose I can't not mention my own band, obviously, where the Paradise Raven are, well known for the charity work. And then obviously we just had our charity parade there, and we did, I think we done 2,700 odd pound or so there lifted for Light of Foot. But that's happening all year. Bands are doing, things for people all year. I know there was over the 12th and stuff, they had the yellow ribbons for there was a girl, Poppy was really sick, and they got a lot of bands to buy in on those, and bands do a lot of good things, don't they?
I do think they are, the people that are maybe didn't appreciate us before are starting to listen now, I think, because they see the good that we do. You're getting grants now from the Arts Council and stuff, and the Ulster Scots and things, but years ago that was unheard of, so there's somebody there thinking we need to help the growth here. I feel anyway.
Yeah, no, I think there is. I think there's also a wee bit of pressure come on, from bands back on it, because at the end of the day, what you have with the band scene is the largest voluntary arts sector in the whole of the UK, not just Northern Ireland, but the whole of the UK, and for a long period of time didn't get access to any funding whatsoever. And when we talk about an equitable and a fair future, how on earth can you bypass that amount of musicians and say that, listen, because they're attached to the loyalist marching bands, well, they can't get funding? It's just, for me, I always found it ridiculous.
Well, that's the way it was for a long time, but thankfully now there is change. I can see the change, from years ago. People are starting to realise, the good we do within the community, and it's.
I think bands are better at promoting it as well now. Obviously with the Facebook, the social media, Twitter, and all that kind of, bands are better at promoting the fact that they are doing this good stuff. And I definitely would recommend bands to make sure that if they are doing good stuff, I know sometimes you don't want to, you're not doing it for the publicity. But I think it's good to kind of challenge the stereotype of bands and say, well, listen, we are doing this and promoting the really positive things that they do. What would you say you personally have got out of being a member of a band?
It's kind of been my life. Just getting out and getting away, the friends you've met through the years, it's, you wouldn't get it anywhere else. Obviously, being the bandmaster, you always had a bit of pressure on you to try and be something different, but it's just the way things worked out for me anyway. I love being in the band, and I don't think there's times when it's not easy to get out and you're thinking, oh no, it's raining and this and that, and you don't want to do, but you just get out and you do it. But for me, I don't know where I would have been if I wasn't in the band. Just it's the direction I went in, and I have no complaints about it.
Yeah, I'm sure you can look back and see maybe people that maybe didn't take it a right path and stuff, and and they on there, but for the grace of God, goes me, do you know what I mean? And yet, you know, and yet that's another thing that I really like to hear people talking about. It's like kind of going, if it wasn't for the bond, I don't know where I would be. I don't know how many times I've heard someone say that to me over the course of doing the podcast. I was like kind of going, when you think about the amount of people that are involved in bonds and how many people's lives have maybe been taken in a different direction. Yeah. We could be bonds deal with tragedy. We obviously we have people. There's things happening in the bond scene, you know, in terms of, you know, obviously, you know, being involved with the likes of Light of Food. There's, you know, mental health issues and stuff like that. Nobody's immune to that type of thing. But I almost think, you know, that, you know, influence on somebody's life. God knows how many lives have been saved by bonds over the years. I get a wee bit emotional thinking about that. But how many lives potentially have been saved by bonds over the years just purely because people who are around them, interested in them, checking up on them to see how they are. God knows where things might have been if it hadn't been for bonds.
I definitely would like to touch on that Light of Foot. That just the, you know, the suicide awareness that they brought into the band scene. I think the work they do is, you know, it's above and beyond what anybody else is trying to do. You know, it's brought something into the band scene and made people aware of who they're with. If the guys are down, go and be with them, talk to them, do whatever you need to do. Because, you know, before you seen somebody down, or you thought, oh, he's lost interest. But he hasn't lost interest.
Sure.
It's something else that's working on it.
I know, I think it's been long overdue, you know what I mean, in terms of, you know, being able to provide some level of support for, you know, bonds. Because it's not that it's exclusively men, but there's a high percentage of membership within bonds that is obviously men, and that's a high risk area. You know, more men commit suicide every year. You know, more men suffer from mental health problems but don't necessarily talk about it. And the fact that, you know, Light of Food's there trying to raise awareness of that and, you know, help bonds, you know, do something about it, but also provide an online messaging service for people to be able to reach in. Then obviously they've a number of bass drums and stuff that they're using, and I think you have skins and stuff, don't you?
We commissioned a set of skins. Headley painted it for us before he passed away, which we tried to get the bass drum a time or two, and we thought, no, we'll get our own and we'll carry them all year. So we carried them for a year. We still have them. Put them in now and again. So
brilliant. No, that's good. It's always good to see, do you know what I mean? I think, and again, with the Ravens, Charlie prayed there being for Light of Food, you know, I know the Parkinson took one of the bass drums. I think all three went out that night. I think the Parkinson took one, the Raging Suns had one, and I think there was one of the other bands definitely took one as well, you know, so great to have that up out there. And definitely, if just as a side note here on the podcast, if anybody does feel that they need someone to talk to, then please do reach out to the Light of Food, and the guys on the team there are really too happy to talk to you and point you in the right direction of any support and help that you might need. Jason, in terms of finishing off then, what I wouldn't mind asking you about then is, we've talked a wee bit about helping people understand what the bond scene's all about. If you were going to do that for someone, what would you tell them?
I would definitely tell them that you know, that it's a safe environment for young ones to come into now. There's more awareness about what we do. You know, years ago, maybe parents would have said, "Oh no, he's not joining the band," but the benefits that the young fella would get or girl would get in a band now, you know, far outweigh any worries that, you know, if they're with a band, they're going to be looked after. They're going to get out, they're going to experience things they're not experienced anywhere else. I would definitely recommend it to anybody.
Brilliant. Good stuff. And what's the future looking like for Pride of the Maine?
We're still on the go. We've got good membership, and still we've got interest. You know, young guys come and learning. So We're still there.
Still healthy then?
Still healthy.
Brilliant. Well, listen, I just want to say thank you very much for coming in and taking the time to talk to us, but also for being the very first person to be doing the video version of the podcast as well. It's not always easy going first, but thank you very much for taking the time. Brilliant, man. Thank you.
No problem.
You have been listening to the Made to Parade podcast, sponsored by the British Drum Company, where Phantom, Regimental Series and Axial Parade drums are hand-built in the UK to look amazing, sound amazing and feel amazing.